Question 1, Dr. Tan Yueheng. Thank you, President. It has been reported that the funds raised through initial public offerings in Hong Kong in the first 9 months of this year has increased by over 200% as compared with the same period last year. Regarding measures to promote the development of the financial market, will the government inform this council, 1, whether it will, in the light of enterprises from different jurisdictions, establish flexible information disclosure standards and transitional arrangements for listing to attract more international enterprises to list in Hong Kong, thereby elevating the international status of Hong Kong's capital market and drawing greater capital inflow. 2, whether it will continue to promote fintech development and product diversification of the exchange-traded fund market, such as exploring innovative market infrastructure with the use of blockchain technology and offering more globalized ETF products with a view to developing Hong Kong into a leading international ETF trading hub. And 3, as it has been reported that since the implementation of the GEM, formerly known as the Growth Enterprise Market Reform Measures last year, a total of 4 enterprises have listed on GEM. And the new listing on GEM this year has recorded an oversubscription of over 9,000 times. Whether the government knows if the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited has assessed the effectiveness of GEM reforms and how it will continue to refine the overall listing regime for developing a healthier and sustainable capital market. Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, with Hong Kong as an international financial center, the government is driving the Securities and Futures Commission, SFC, and the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited, Hong Kong X, to better leverage our unique advantages of enjoying strong support of the motherland and being closely connected to the world under one country, two systems. This includes taking forward reforms across different areas of the securities market and implementing various enhancements to the listing regime to promote high-quality market development. With a series of listing reforms, Hong Kong's primary market saw 69 newly listed companies in the first 3 quarters of 2025, with over 180 billion Hong Kong dollars raised through initial public offerings or IPO, representing an increase of over 2 times compared to the same period last year and ranking first globally. The number of listing applications is also surging. Hong Kong X was processing close to 300 listing applications as of the end of September. In addition, 4 companies were listed on GEM since its reform in 2024, raising 280 million Hong Kong dollars. 11 applications from small and medium enterprises for listing on GEM have been received so far this year, indicating that the early measures are beginning to yield results. Riding on the positive momentum in 2025, Hong Kong X and the SFC are taking forward further institutional enhancements to strengthen the vibrancy and competitiveness of Hong Kong's market. In consultation with the SFC and Hong Kong X, my reply to the 3 parts of the question is as follows. 1 and 3. As a superconnector between the world and our country, Hong Kong serves the function to facilitate efficient two-way flows of international and mainland capital. International institutional investors have wide participation in Hong Kong's IPO market. More overseas issuers, including those from Thailand, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Singapore, etc., have chosen to list in Hong Kong this year. International participation has also attracted mainland enterprises to accelerate their global expansion through Hong Kong's market. Since the beginning of the year until the end of September, over half of the companies listing in Hong Kong have international businesses, with about 50% of their revenue generated from overseas markets. The government will continue to drive the SFC and the Hong Kong X to refine the listing mechanism for attracting enterprises with growth potential from around the world to list and raise funds in Hong Kong. To this end, Hong Kong X enhanced the listing requirements for overseas issuers by introducing a set of core shareholder protection standards applicable to all issuers and publishing guidance to facilitate compliance. For enterprises listed overseas, Hong Kong X established a facilitative pathways for them to seek dual primary or secondary listing in Hong Kong. This includes relaxing the market capitalization requirement for Greater China issuers without weighted voting rights or WVR structures to secondary list in Hong Kong and offering greater flexibility for eligible issuers with WVR or variable interest entity structures which meet the requirements for secondary listing to obtain primary listing status in Hong Kong. Hong Kong X has also included a number of exchanges from the Middle East and ASEAN region onto its list of recognized stock exchanges successively since 2023, facilitating companies listed on the relevant markets to seek a secondary listing in Hong Kong. In addition, Hong Kong X has formulated flexible information disclosure standards and transitional arrangements to provide facilitation to overseas issuers, such as, where appropriate, permitting overseas issuers to prepare annual financial statements using standards as recognized by Hong Kong X, other than Hong Kong or international financial reporting standards, and granting grace periods for full compliance with the listing rules for issuers transitioning from secondary to dual primary listings. To strengthen Hong Kong's competitiveness as a listing venue, the SFC and the Hong Kong X have been continuously assessing the effectiveness of the listing reforms and actively following up on various initiatives outlined in the Chief Executive's 2025 policy address. They include further refining different aspects of the listing regime while balancing relevant risks and investor protection, and reviewing the listing requirements for companies with WVR structures. The review will also explore further ways to better serve the fundraising needs of enterprises of different types and sizes on the basis of the GEM reform, as well as attracting more investors and capital to enter our market. Hong Kong X will announce the relevant enhancement measures with public consultation to be conducted as appropriate once they are ready. Part 2. The Global Exchange Traded Fund or ETF market has grown rapidly in recent years, facilitating investors to diversify their investment portfolios across different asset classes and strategies effectively. The government is committed to supporting the development of the local ETF market. We've waived the stamp duty on secondary market trading of ETFs and stock transactions by market makers in the course of creating and redeeming ETF units since 2015 and 2020 respectively, thereby lowering the relevant trading and listing costs. In 2022, ETFs were included under Stock Connect, allowing Hong Kong and overseas investors to trade eligible ETFs listed on the Shanghai and Shenzhen exchanges, and enabling mainland investors to invest in eligible ETFs listed in Hong Kong. Meanwhile, we proactively expand the local ETF ecosystem. Since 2023, we saw various product innovations, including the listing of Asia's first ETF tracking the Saudi Arabia market in Hong Kong, and the listing of 2 ETFs tracking Hong Kong stocks on Saudi Exchange in the form of feeder funds, establishing a bridge for two-way capital flows between the two places. Last year, Hong Kong X launched Asia's first batch of spot virtual asset ETFs and Hong Kong's first batch of covered called ETFs, catering it to investors' demand for non-traditional assets, as well as tools to manage potential market volatility and hedge downside risks. This year, we also welcomed the cross-border listing of the world's 5th largest ETF by market capitalization and the listing of the first Islamic bond ETF in Hong Kong. With strong policy support, Hong Kong has developed into one of Asia's largest and most active ETF markets, attracting the participation of a wide range of issuers, market makers, and investors. In the first 3 quarters of 2025, the average daily turnover of ETFs in Hong Kong reached 34.2 billion Hong Kong dollars, up 113% from the full-year average in 2024 and 190% from the full-year average in 2023. As of the end of September, assets under management in Hong Kong's ETF market reached 625.4 billion Hong Kong dollars. We look forward to working closely with stakeholders striving to introduce more products, including promoting the issuance and trading of tokenized ETFs and assisting issuers to issue gold-related ETFs so as to reinforce Hong Kong's position as an all-rounded leading ETF trading hub. We also support Hong Kong X's efforts to further step up promotion in ASEAN and the Middle East, and to actively explore collaboration opportunities with these countries, including ETF listings, to further enrich the local ETF ecosystem. Dr. Tan Yueheng. Thank you, President. Now, through innovation and integration between traditional and emerging financial ecosystems, we provide vibrancy to Hong Kong's capital market. In recent years, there have been rapid developments in relation to crypto assets and digital assets. Now, as an international financial center, will the government of Hong Kong consider striking a proper balance so as to further inject impetus into the local capital market by attracting enterprises under these categories which meet the relevant eligibility requirements? Secretary, thank you. President, thank you, member, for the question. Now, according to Chapter 21 of the listing rules, in relation to these companies or enterprises in questions, there are already rules set out. The Hong Kong X and the SFC will also consider these applications on the basis of the listing rules. On the whole, we will explore the development of businesses relating to tokenized products so as to ensure healthy and sustainable development of the market. In fact, in the past 2 years, the SFC and other regulators have promulgated various guidelines and issued circulars to promote the development of tokenized assets in this regard. And in fact, we have just allowed the trading of the first batch of gold-related ETFs, tokenized products in Hong Kong. And in the first quarter, SFC also recognized the first batch of retail tokenized ETF fund in the APAC region. And in fact, in April this year, we also increased the eligible categories for ETF funds traded in Hong Kong, including tokenized assets. We'll continue to improve the local ETF ecosystem. Riding on the Policy Statement 2.0 on digital assets in Hong Kong, published in June this year, we will continue to explore product diversification to make Hong Kong a global innovative financial hub. Ms. Maggie Chan. Now, the government has strived to tap the ASEAN and the Middle East markets. These enterprises have financing needs, and the Middle East in particular is what we should target because we have a mature financing platform. In 2023, the Hong Kong X recognized the Saudi exchange, and apart from that, my question is how will the government continue to attract capital from the Middle East and ASEAN to further facilitate the development of the Belt and Road financing platforms development? Secretary, thank you, President, and thank you, member. In fact, one of our work priorities is to attract capital and investments from overseas, including ASEAN and the Middle East. And since 2022, we have launched a series of market reforms to facilitate the listing of overseas enterprises in Hong Kong. Now, I'd like to highlight one of the measures, that is to facilitate overseas issuers to be listed in Hong Kong, and we have yielded results. As I mentioned in the main reply, issuers from Thailand, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, and Singapore, etc., have chosen Hong Kong as the IPO market. As at the end of September, 192 overseas companies in Hong Kong have listed in Hong Kong. They came from 15 jurisdictions, excluding the mainland. And as far as the recognized exchanges are concerned, we have continued to review the list. And in 2023, we added Saudi Exchange, the Indonesian Exchange, as well as Abu Dhabi Exchange. In 2023-2024, in March this year, we also further included the Exchange of Thailand in our list to facilitate listing on the main board. As for the first batch of first ETF tracking the Saudi Arabia market, it was launched in 2023, and there are also 2 other ETFs listed in the Middle East market tracking the Hong Kong market. And as on the 15th of October, altogether the market capitalization of the relevant funds reached $16.3 billion. We'll continue to roll out different measures to attract capital and investments from the Middle East and ASEAN. And the Hong Kong X has also announced another measure to set up an office in the Middle East to enhance liaison. Next, Dr. Dennis LAM. Thank you, President. In order to provide support to small to medium-sized companies listed in Hong Kong, in 2023, under the Stock Connect, the eligibility requirement was adjusted from $5 billion of market capitalization to $4 billion. However, because of the external economic environment, there are still many listed companies with a total market capitalization of $4 billion or below, and they have been taken out of the Stock Connect scheme. Some investors have incurred losses as a result. Will the government consider further lowering the threshold from $4 billion to $3 billion? President, thank you. I'd like to respond to the members' questions. First, we work with the mainland authorities as far as the Stock Connect schemes are concerned. So we have to reach a consensus before launching any new measure. As for the threshold, I want to make it clear that we need to strike a balance between the interests of investors as well as the market development and the financing needs of issuers. We'll continue to discuss with different regulators, including the mainland authorities, in order to strike this balance so as to ensure healthy market development and protection for investors. Now, I want to emphasize that the government has continued to explore ways to further deepen and broaden the Stock Connect schemes with the mainland, and will continue to negotiate with the mainland authorities to further enhance our capacity, including the types of products and the diversity of products. Dr. Martin Liao. President, according to what I've heard, there are some 300 enterprises in Hong Kong which have submitted applications to the Hong Kong X to be listed in Hong Kong. Now, this shows that there is a keen demand for Hong Kong's capital market. So there is a need to increase capital flow, and I am concerned about the Stock Connect scheme covering new stocks. I'd like to know whether there is any progress or any timetable available. Secretary. Thank you, President. Under the various mutual access schemes, we have different initiatives, including one for new stocks, and we have been reflecting our views to the mainland authorities. Now, under the mutual access schemes, we need to work out the details with the mainland authorities, including measures to expand capacity. We need to resolve technical issues as well to promote market development and manage risks. So we'll continue to explore different projects, and we will also announce these details when they're ready. Mr. Robert Lee. Well, the CSRC announced 5 measures to stimulate Hong Kong's capital market, and since then, some leading companies have applied to be listed in Hong Kong. That gives a boost to our local market. And in terms of new stocks, the Hang Seng Index, etc., we have seen some achievements. Now, there are suggestions from the sector that the GEM board listing requirements should be further revamped, such as the threshold for market capitalization and the period of waiting. It should be shortened from 3 to 2 years. So my question is whether the government will consider these relaxation measures to bring more vibrancy to the market. Secretary, thank you, President. Thank you, Member, for the question. We have always attached importance to the views of the sector, and we've also considered how GEM can provide a better financing platform for small to medium-sized enterprises. In fact, a series of reform measures have been rolled out since 2024, and since then, in 2024, 4 enterprises have listed on the GEM board with total market capitalization of 280 million Hong Kong dollars. We've also received 11 new applications for listing on GEM. And there are also 3 applications for converting from the GEM board to main board listing, one of which has come through. In fact, as of the end of September, the total market capitalization reached $75 billion. That's up by quite a substantial portion, comparing to 53.6 billion Hong Kong dollars in 2023. Now, I understand the views from the sector. We'll continue to strive for a balanced development. We need to strike a balance between healthy development and protection for investors. And as I mentioned in the main reply, we will continue to explore with the Hong Kong X and SFC on GEM board reforms to better meet the financing needs of enterprises. We'll continue to listen to views. Mrs. Regina Ip. Thank you, President. Cryptocurrencies development is now more and more intertwined with the market development, and there have been major fluctuations in the cryptocurrency markets, including stable coins. There are suggestions that the substantial depreciation of crypto assets has to do with a very complex hedging mechanism. And in fact, according to media reports, some in other places, some politicians have managed to reap a big profit because of insider news, which have caused market fluctuation. Now, my question is, how do we make sure that the market will not experience turbulence, especially for stable coins, so as to protect investors from huge losses and unnecessary losses? Secretary, thank you for the questions. We understand that with technological advancements, there are new products coming on stream, and that is why we need to make sure that there is proper monitoring and regulation. We earlier rolled out a licensing regime for virtual assets trading platforms, and as mentioned, we also launched a licensing regime for stablecoin issuers. We have received some applications. The Hong Kong MA are considering them. We do impose certain requirements to protect investors. For example, there should be segregation of assets for issuers, as well as other risk management and due diligence measures. Now, I believe that with this licensing regime for stablecoin issues, we will be able to provide sufficient safeguards for investors. Now, for digital and virtual assets, there are other businesses that we need to regulate, including the service providers and also custodian service providers for digital assets. Now, for these 2 types of service providers, we earlier launched a public consultation. In the second half of next year, we should be able to submit the legislative framework proposal to LegCo for consideration.
Question 2, Dr. Dennis Lam. Thank you, President. Information from the Department of Health shows that in the 2023 to 2024 school year, 53.8% of primary 6 students wore glasses, while the proportion of secondary school students wearing glasses was even higher at 63%. The percentage of children and adolescents suffering from high myopia is also on the rise, which is a cause for concern. In this connection, will the government inform this council, first, whether it will expand the scope of the visual acuity tests provided by the DH's Student Health Service to include detailed refraction tests for students, instead of conducting only screening tests, so as to enable students to understand their vision and myopia early on and prevent the progression of myopia as appropriate. Second, as it has been reported that some parents are unable to find time to bring their children to undergo the visual acuity tests provided by the SHS, resulting in a coverage rate of only about 65% of such tests. Whether the government has explored how to raise the coverage rate, if so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that, and third, whether it will study the promotion of emerging myopia control therapies in the primary healthcare system. These are proven methods such as defocus lenses, orthokeratology lenses, also known as ortho-K lenses, and low-concentration atropine eye drops, and establish relevant public-private referral and subsidy mechanisms for children from grassroots families. Secretary for Health. President, the government has been safeguarding the visual health of children and adolescents. Among others, the Department of Health has been providing free assessment services for children and adolescents in Hong Kong at different stages of their development, from birth all the way to the end of their secondary school education, through the maternal and child health centers and the student health service centers. We're talking about annual health checks. This will help us spot students with visual acuity issues so that we can provide timely advice and intervention. After consultation with the Department of Health and the Hospital Authority, I now give my reply to Dr. Dennis LAM's question as follows. The MCHCs of the DH offer free and detailed physical examinations, including eye examinations. For newborn babies, this will help us identify serious congenital visual defect. After that, MCHCs offer free preschool vision screening for children aged 4 to 5. The aim is to spot those with visual problems such as amblyopia, squint, or significant refractive errors as early as we can. In 2024, more than 23,600 preschool children took part in this free preschool visual screening. We referred 15% of these students to ophthalmologists for follow-up actions. For school-age children, the DH offers free and comprehensive annual health assessments covering about 400,000 primary and secondary school students. Students, whether they wear glasses or not, will undergo vision screening under our arrangement. The vision screening tests and standards provided by the DH are consistent with the latest guidelines published by the World Health Organization in 2023. On the first part of Dr. Dennis LAM's question, our checks are more than just screening. After the screening, the Department of Health follows up with detailed eye examinations. In 2023 to 24, for the 257,000 primary school students who received the free annual health assessment, 35% of them wore glasses. Assessments found that nearly 20%, or about 51,000 such students, failed the preliminary visual acuity test. These students were referred to the optometrists in the DH's special assessment service for further visual assessment that includes diopter tests, pupil examination, retinoscopy, testing for squint, etc. Among these 51,000 students, more than 60%, or 32,000 students, received further assessments by the optometrists under the DH. Other parents chose to consult private optometrists for assessment and follow-up actions for their children. Now, for common refractive problems, glasses with the correct prescription are given. Other students with other eye problems are referred to the hospitals under the HA. On Dr. Lam's second part of his question, our overall coverage rate of 65% being a result of parents not being able to make time for this, I want to say this is not correct. Participation in the annual health check requires parental consent, but not parents accompanying their children on those occasions. In 2023 to 24, 98.8% of primary and secondary schools took part in the free annual health checks, and that includes the visual acuity checks. So the participation rate was almost 100%. We thank schools for their active participation because of the importance they attach to the health of students. On the coverage of students, we need parental consent for the checks. For the 257,000 primary school students covered, that's only 78.6% of such students covered. By the time we get to secondary school students, the rate is lower. Among the 173,000 students, the coverage rate is only 53.6%. For primary 1, secondary 1 students, 71%. Form 3 students, 56.3%. By Form 6, the rate drops to 30.9%. Simply put, the higher the level you go, the fewer students who go to the checks. The reason for the lower participation rate at the senior secondary levels is the result of many factors: more academic commitments, more extracurricular activities, and when students grow up, they think they are good. Even parents cannot get those students to attend those examinations. So the participation rate is not the result of parents failing to make time to go with their students. As President Xi once said, health is the run in front, everything else is the zeros that follow. Without the run in front, no matter how many zeros follow, it has no meaning. If students cannot see the blackboard clearly, they cannot be expected to learn. The annual health assessment takes only 90 minutes. That can bring substantial benefits to students' health. So for schools and parents, please cooperate and let's safeguard the healthy growth of children together. I want to say this again. Participation in the annual health checks requires parental consent, but not parents accompanying their students on those checks. Over the years, the Department of Health has dedicated teams to help schools schedule the time for the annual health checks. For schools taking part in the annual health checks, the Department of Health provides free shuttle bus services. That's to make it easier for those schools to send more students to the health checks en masse. In 2024-25, the DH even launched an online enrollment portal to make it easier for more students to sign up for the annual health assessment. Prevention is better than cure. Maintaining good eye care habits and having regular vision checks are essential to preventing myopia and slowing its progression. Elsewhere in the world, such as the Chinese mainland and Singapore, focus on health promotion education, promoting outdoor activities and reducing screen time as ways to prevent and control myopia. The DH will continue to encourage students to develop healthy lifestyles through annual health assessments and health promotion education. This includes at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity every day, as recommended by the WHO, less screen time, and observance of guidelines on eye health. In recent years, some optometry centers have promoted products and treatments with claims of myopia control benefit. The effectiveness of these products and treatments varies from person to person. Adopting these treatments depends on many factors such as the choice of students and parents, time, means, as well as the overall socioeconomic cost-effectiveness. Parents and students may choose conventional glasses or these new treatments. In doing so, they should consider multiple factors. They should seek the professional advice from registered optometrists and ophthalmologists. Thank you, President. Dr. Dennis LAM. Thank you, President. I also thank the Secretary for the clarification, so parents don't have to be with their students when they go to those health checks. So for these annual health checks, the coverage rate is on the low side. The more senior you go in secondary schools, the fewer students who attend. So what will the government do about this? I agree with the Secretary. Prevention is better than the cure. Good eye care habits such as less screen time and more physical activity, more outdoor activities do work. For the future, what will we do to redouble our efforts on this? For mainland students, they receive at least 2 eye checks every year. Those checks cover not just vision but also the diopter. Secretary. I thank Dr. Lam for a supplementary question. Children grow up, they have their own ideas. Vision checks are more important for younger children because we want to spot problems early on. We do annual vision checks. Now for senior secondary students, their participation rate is on the low side, and we can easily see why. For us, the Department of Health makes every effort to make it easier for these students to take part in the annual health checks. For secondary students, they can go to those checks without their parents accompanying them there. We will continue to work with schools. We will redouble our effort on education. We want students to make time for these annual health checks even when they reach senior secondary forms. Dr. Lam brought up the mainland health checks twice a year, and they also check for the diopter. I want to stress that in my main reply I have said this already. For the more than 400,000 primary and secondary school students, we start with the screening. And then for the 20% of students who fail the test, as I said, 51,000 primary students are referred to optometrists to check for the diopter. So we have the same approach as the mainland. We start with a large-scale screening. So we start with straightforward checks. We find out those with problems, and then we follow up with further exams. For those with no visual issues, you don't have to go for the detailed checks. It's only for people with visual problems that we refer them to optometrists, and then we check for the diopter. It's just like for cancer screening. It's the same strategy. You start with a simple screening for colorectal cancer. We look at the stool. We'll see if there is anything off with the blood, and then we go for colonoscopy. Ms. Lian Kwok. Myopia control is now a matter of national importance. High myopia can lead to cataract and higher risks of getting other eye diseases. For now, there are families on CSSA. They can get glasses for their children. For low-income families, they also get support from the Community Care Fund to get glasses. CSSA provides full subsidy, but then for the CCF, they get a cap of $600, and they can only get a subsidy once every 2 years. So my question is, we now have new technologies, defocus lenses, ortho-K glasses, eye drops. We have so many options in myopia control. But those tools make up only 5%. In Taiwan and Singapore, the share is either over 50% or close to 50%. So are we falling short? Do we have enough support measures for low-income families? They want to buy a $3,000 pair of defocus lenses. That subsidy doesn't cover the amount. So can we have better support measures, more subsidies under CSSA and the CCF for those families to get the proper glasses? Those families opting for defocus lenses may have to get new glasses every 6 months so that they can correct the myopia. So I urge the government to consider this. Can we look at our myopia control strategy? Can we have more subsidies for treatment? Or can we have a review of how we deal with myopia? Secretary. There is growing demand for such treatments and options. But we also have to ensure proper use of public money. Let's look at our figures. Let's look at myopia as an issue. More than half of our population suffers from myopia. By secondary 6, that share goes even higher for secondary 6 students. Our social security system offers tailored support for families with a need. Under CSSA, we have a dedicated subsidy for glasses. Eligible students get a subsidy of up to $600 per pair of glasses, and they can get a new pair of glasses every 2 years for that subsidy. As for other glasses such as ortho-K lenses and defocus lenses, as I've said, these are new products with claims of myopia control benefits. There is data for the use of such options. But not every parent or student goes for these options. There are challenges for each option. Now, for the atropine eye drops, for example, the student has to go to an ophthalmologist regularly. Imagine what happens when you apply this to more than half of our population. You have to consider the social cost of doing so. Mr. Duncan Chiu. Thank you, President. On myopia among students, less screen time is one option recommended by the healthcare sector. In the technology sector, people argue myopia can be caused by other factors than screen time. But there is an irreversible trend. More and more young people will spend more time on screens such as smartphones and computers. Schools use tablet computers during classroom learning instead of physical books. When you use tablets, you get instant feedback. They can tailor education for each student. This trend will keep growing. Does switching to tablets necessarily worsen myopia for students? Can the Health Bureau conduct deeper research into this? Can we look at a school that has fully adopted tablets, and can we compare how that school does with the school that has yet to adopt such an approach? And if there is a difference, can we talk to the Education Bureau about this? Can we switch things up? Can we rearrange the classes to avoid prolonged exposure to screens for schools that do adopt tablet learning? Secretary. We do have studies on screen time and social media, as well as their impact on the psychological and physiological well-being of children. For children, overexposure to screen will affect their sight. The Department of Health has health advice on screen time. For those aged 6 to 12, daily exposure to screens for non-educational purposes should be less than 2 hours. Our advice is mostly in line with global recommendations. The Chief Executive also announced in the policy address this year that in light of the community's concerns about screen time among young people, the DH will have a departmental expert panel update the guidelines to mitigate the impact of screen time and social media on young people. And we will also promote healthy lifestyles and responsible use of the internet and screens for young people. We will promote the correct eye care habits. If you stare at a screen, if it's a computer, you should be 50 centimeters apart from the monitor. If it's a tablet, it should be 40 centimeters. If it's a smartphone, it should be 30 centimeters. So that's the 30, 40, 50 rule. And we also have the 20-20-20 eye care rule. So when you do near work, for 20 minutes, you should stare at something at least 20 feet away for at least 20 seconds. The Education Bureau will continue to promote efforts on this front.
Question 3. Mr. Frankie YICK. Thank you, President. Some members of the transport trade anticipate that the shortage of taxi drivers will worsen as elderly taxi drivers retire and some drivers switch to driving ride-hailing vehicles after the legislation regulating ride-hailing vehicles comes into effect. In addition, it has been reported that 5 taxi fleets are struggling to achieve scaled operation due to difficulties in recruiting drivers. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. As it is learned that there are about 210,000 holders of valid taxi driving licenses in Hong Kong, but only 20% of them are active taxi drivers, whether the government has studied why holders of taxi driving licenses do not join the taxi industry, and whether it has estimated the number of taxi drivers that the market is currently still short of. 2. Of these specific measures in place to assist taxi fleets in recruiting drivers so that they can achieve the target of having 3,500 taxis in service 4 months after obtaining the licenses, that is by the end of November this year. And 3, whether it will consider introducing measures after the upcoming enhancement of the taxi written test in November this year to allow imported drivers to drive taxis in Hong Kong after meeting certain qualifications and examination requirements, and implement this on a trial basis in taxi fleets in order to help the trade to achieve its targeted fleet size as early as possible. If so, of the details, if not the reasons for that, and other measures in place to increase the supply of taxi drivers. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, the government has all along been keeping in view the manpower situation of the taxi industry and has introduced various measures to enhance the service quality of taxis and support the trade in improving its operating environment in order to promote the healthy development of the trade in the long run and attract more new blood to join the taxi trade. Regarding Mr. Frankie Yick's questions, my reply is as follows. 1. In light of the continuously aging population, all trades need to cope with manpower-related challenges. In terms of the taxi trade, the government has been taking a multi-pronged approach to increase the overall driver supply, including the enhancement of the taxi written test in 2020 by updating the test content and adjusting the number of questions, so as to focus more on the assessment of core knowledge regarding taxi services. The number of candidates sitting the test increased significantly by 40% in the past 5 years to around 14,000 candidates in 2024. To keep up with the times and better align the taxi written test with the operational needs of the trade, the Transport Department (TD) will, starting from the next month, further enhance the test by substantially reducing and simplifying the questions on locations and routes and adding new questions related to enhancement of taxi service quality with the aim of maintaining assessment standards while attracting more aspiring individuals to join the taxi trade. Apart from that, the government also relaxed the eligibility requirements for taxi driving licenses in 2020. The period required for an applicant to hold a private car or a light goods vehicle full driving license has been shortened from a minimum of 3 years to 1 year. Besides, the government has implemented a number of measures in recent years to enhance the service quality and overall image of the taxi trade, thereby helping to attract new blood to join the industry. Such measures include introducing taxi fleet with systematic management, organizing the taxi service commendation scheme, increasing the maximum passenger seating capacity of taxis, introducing a taxi driver offense point system, and relaxing no-stopping restrictions for taxis at designated restricted zones. In addition, the Employees Retraining Board also offers taxi driver-related training courses to assist participants in joining the taxi trade. Those who are eligible may even receive tuition reductions. All these measures help to attract more young new blood to apply for a taxi driving license. As of this August, about 18,200 taxi driving license holders are aged 40 or below, up by over 50% from 2019, with around 11,800 taxi driving license holders aged 40 or below. The current number of active taxi drivers is about 46,000. Whether a taxi driving license holder opts to become an active active taxi driver depends on multiple factors and could not be generalized. These factors include individual career preferences, the overall economic situation, and the operating environment, income and costs, such as taxi rental levels of the industry. The government will continue to implement different measures to promote the healthy development of the taxi trade in order to attract new blood to join the trade and increase the overall driver supply. 2. Regarding taxi fleets, the government has been actively coordinating and providing support to the fleets as needed, including promoting the cooperation between each fleet and third-party platforms to provide centralized taxi hailing services, facilitating vehicle examination arrangements for fleet taxis, coordinating fleet operators' application for dedicated 100% loan guarantee scheme for better e-taxis, and promoting fleet services to citizens and tourists. In addition, to facilitate fleet taxis picking up of passengers with pre-booked service, the TD has set up about 80 designated fleet taxi stopping places across 13 locations, such as the airport, certain boundary control points, and the express rail link station. On driver recruitment, the government has been arranging for fleet operators to take part in district and thematic job fairs organized by the Labor Department, enabling fleet operators to explain to job seekers the management, training, and support provided to drivers in order to attract existing drivers to new blood to join the taxi fleets. In addition, the fleets have also put in place different measures to recruit taxi drivers, including placing advertisements on radio and social media platforms, offering new driver referral bonuses and safe driving bonuses, as well as flexi working hours. We understand that the job fairs and various measures have drawn inquiries from job seekers outside the trade. 100 newcomers have been successfully recruited to switch careers and join the fleet. We'll continue to support the fleets in recruiting drivers and urge the fleet operators to proactively enhance their services and expedite the recruitment of drivers and taxi owners in order to drive the fleets towards their community scale and providing passengers with quality taxi services. 3. With regard to the suggestion on labor importation, considering that taxi is a type of personalized point-to-point transport service, drivers should be familiar with local road network and transport system and should be able to select the most direct and practicable routes to destinations having regard to real-time traffic conditions. Drivers also need to maintain communication with passengers. In this connection, the nature of taxi services is different from that of public-led buses or non-franchise buses, which have fixed stopping points and routes. The government now has no plan to import labor for the taxi industry. As mentioned above, we'll continue to closely monitor the situation and maintain communication with the trade in order to ensure stability of the taxi services and a healthy development of the industry in the long run. Mr. Frankie YICK. The government has rolled out a lot of measures to attract new blood to join the taxi trade. However, in reality, the taxi trade is still facing a manpower crunch. In the past year or so, with the experience of importing labor from outside Hong Kong, the feedback has been quite good. So, I appeal to the government to relax the importation of labor from outside Hong Kong to cover the taxi trade. I suggest that the government should consider imposing more conditions, including 1. Cantonese proficiency, 2. Having experience of operating ride-hailing services in the Chinese mainland, and 3. Having good driving record, 4. Undertaking training courses, and to be recruited under a certain taxi fleet. I hope that the government will take stock of the pilot scheme and consider extending these scheme to wider application. Secretary, thank you, Mr. YICK. Regarding the labor importation scheme for the public transportation sector, we have a dedicated scheme, which was launched in July 2023. The quota was 1,700. Up till mid-August 2025, over 1,550 drivers have already obtained the relevant driving licenses. They have already started providing services after undergoing training. They are operating 140 fixed or pre-designated routes. I believe this will help alleviate the shortage of drivers in Hong Kong. In addition, we will also continue to monitor the preparation for taxi fleets. We will also closely monitor its development. on recruiting more drivers to promote the healthy development of the taxi trade. We understand different fleets face different difficulties. We will provide assistance, including charging facilities as well as parking spaces in boundary control points and other financing requirements. In this connection, without doubt, we'll continue to adopt a multi-pronged approach to help with the further development of taxi fleets in Hong Kong. Thank you, Mr. Edward Leung. Thank you, President. The experience of making a booking on online platforms to call taxis is actually not quite good. First of all, there are really not many vehicles accepting online bookings. Do I need to use a lot of apps before I can successfully book a taxi? We need to solve two key problems instead. One, we need to increase the supply of taxi fleet drivers. We also need to consolidate all the different platforms. We need one consolidated platform to call taxis in Hong Kong. Only when we can solve these two problems could we successfully implement this scheme. Will the Secretary consider optimizing the scheme? Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for his views regarding the development of taxi fleets. Taxi fleets have been recruiting drivers and inviting different drivers to join the fleets. They also want to attract different taxi license holders in order to attract more new blood to taxi fleets. They want to expand their fleets. As of mid-October this year, the latest figures are that there are over 1,100 taxis operated under taxi fleets. Will continue to collaborate with the different taxi fleets in Hong Kong regarding experience of calling a taxi online. We attach a lot of importance to this. Different platforms and technological companies have got in touch with the operators of taxi fleets. They want to provide better passenger matching services for operators of these platforms. We do want to consolidate the different platforms in the market. We want to make it more convenient for members of the public to call a taxi on a one-stop platform. We want to provide convenience to members of the public. Thank you, Mr. Chow Siu-chung. Thank you, President. I'm pleased to hear from the Secretary that the government currently has no plan to import foreign labor from outside Hong Kong. In recent years, the number of people taking the taxi written test has increased, going up from 10,000 in 2019 to close to 14,000 in 2024. As for people who passed the test, the figure increased from 3,600 to 8,000, which is a multifold increase. From 2021, the number of active taxi drivers stayed the same at about 46,000. Has the administration looked into this situation? There are more people having passed the test, but why is the number of active taxi drivers hovering at the same level? What will the government do in order to improve the operating environment of taxis in order to attract more new blood to join the taxi trade? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chow. We need to take a two-pronged approach. First, we need to enhance our efforts to encourage operators to step up recruitment. Two, we need to improve the image of the trade as well as its operating environment, thereby attracting more new blood to the industry. On the number of active taxi drivers, it is quite difficult to use one single criterion to define active. There are altogether 46,000 active taxi drivers in Hong Kong right now. We distributed subsidies during the pandemic to drivers of taxis. We used a set of criteria in the disbursement of these subsidies, such as the days of working or the hours of working. These are the definitions by which we define an active taxi driver. On the recruitment of taxi drivers, a lot of new blood keep joining the taxi trade. However, for younger drivers, probably they want to strike a good work-life balance. That's why, looking ahead, we are more than willing to discuss with the taxi trade, and we do want to get in touch with people outside the trade. We will ramp up publicity, and we will also be putting in place flexible arrangements in order to increase the overall driver supply of the taxi trade. Thank you, Mr. Peter Shiu. Secretary, we always say that we lack taxi drivers in Hong Kong. There is also an aging driver pool now that the Road Traffic Amendment Ride-Hailing Service Ordinance has already come into operation. Well, recently when I took taxis, I asked taxi drivers whether they would switch to the ride-hailing trade. Younger generations may want to seek more flexible arrangements, so I believe the number of taxi drivers in Hong Kong will decline. Therefore, the taxi trade will face difficulties looking ahead. I go along with Mr. Frankie YICK. If you're worried that taxi drivers don't know the road network in Hong Kong well, actually a lot of the taxi drivers rely on technology. They can use navigation applications to navigate their way in Hong Kong. So when will you allow the importation of foreign labor from outside Hong Kong to join the taxi trade? When will you do so? Thank you, Secretary. We have attached importance to the supply of drivers in the public transportation industry. Labor issues and the overall economic development are major issues. That's why we need to strike a careful balance. Soon enough, we will implement enhancements to the taxi written test in November this year. It was last enhanced in 2020. We will simplify the taxi written test. On the one hand, we will maintain the assessment levels of the taxi written test. On the other hand, we will combine the 3 parts of the current taxi written test to 2 parts. The Road Traffic Amendment Ride-Hailing Service Ordinance, the bill, has been passed recently at the Council. In my communication with the taxi trade, I talked to taxi drivers. They consider the passing of the bill an extra opportunity for them to have more business. We want to attract more new blood to join the taxi trade. They don't need to necessarily have their own vehicle. They can rent a vehicle and then they can provide high-quality point-to-point personalized transport services as well. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Secretary. The age threshold is 12 years old. It has been reduced. A lot of people are worried that taxi drivers will switch from the taxi trade to the ride-hailing service trade. This will lead to a more serious shortage of taxi drivers in Hong Kong. Has the government assessed the cost of ride-hailing platforms as well as the taxi trade, and what measures will the government implement in order to reduce the possible impact on the taxi trade given the manpower shortage in the taxi trade? Thank you, Secretary. With the implementation of the ride-hailing service framework, coming into operation, we need to consider how we can forge a level playing field for the trade. We need to consider the work opportunities for drivers. We need to adopt a human-centric approach. That's why we need to conduct more studies. We need to have more statistics. We need to prevent from affecting the livelihood of drivers at present. But then we need to expand the source of customers or passengers for drivers. In addition, with the regulation of ride-hailing services, we are fleshing out the details of the regulation. As for the taxi trade, we'll continue to keep a close dialogue with the trade. The relevant law has been passed recently. The Transport Department has met with the taxi trade, and the trade has also provided a lot of constructive proposals. We'll continue to work hard in order to make our final decision. Mr. Michael Lee, thank you. The taxi written test will be enhanced from November this year. We saw an increase in the number of the test takers of the taxi written test. That's exactly how the government will attract more new blood to join the taxi trade. However, drivers of ride-hailing services will also have to undergo the taxi written test. And for those drivers with the taxi license, they can directly provide ride-hailing services. So is it possible that these drivers will not join the taxi trade, instead they will switch to provide ride-hailing services? And for eligible candidates, they can apply for tuition reductions, and this is a part of public resources. Will the government consider mandating these beneficiaries to provide services in the taxi trade? Thank you, Secretary. Thank you for Mr. Mercury's questions. We will enhance the taxi written test, and for those who have taken the written test and finished the pre-service courses, they can obtain a license for taxi driving. Then they will also have the qualifications to provide ride-hailing services. We have already taken into account the views expressed by the industry regarding the Employees Retraining Board. We want to provide more incentives. As for those who are jobless right now, we provide concessions or financial incentives in order to attract them to join the taxi trade. Thank you.
Question 4, Mr. Holden CHOW. It's been reported that complaints have been received continuously against the eMPF platform since its launch last year, including cases in which calls to its hotline were frequently unanswered and users had no alternative but to leave voicemails or submit inquiries via email. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, whether it knows the respective number of complaints received from employers and MPF scheme members against the eMPF platform since it's been launched, with a tabulated breakdown of the numbers of complaints and their average processing time by type of complaints, including difficulties in registration, failure to access enrollment status and contribution records, failure to show contribution records in user accounts, complicated procedures for handling contributions, difficulties in changing or updating information, and inefficient customer services. 2, whether it knows the current staffing establishment of the eMPF platform for handling complaints, and whether there are plans to increase manpower or take alternative measures to handle complaints more effectively. If there are plans, of the details, if not the reasons for that. And 3, as there are views pointing out that it takes excessively long for the eMPF platform to handle complaints of the number of complaint cases which have not been resolved within the stipulated time frame under its service delivery standards within 12 working days so far, and the respective reasons for failing to meet the standards. Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, the eMPF platform seeks to standardize, streamline, and automate MPF scheme administration work, thereby enhancing operational efficiency, reducing administrative costs, driving fee reduction, and providing greater convenience in managing MPF accounts. In consultation with the MPF schemes authority, our consolidated reply to the various parts of the question is as follows. Since the launch of the eMPF platform last June, 17 MPF schemes administered by 10 trustees have onboarded the platform, altogether accounting for roughly 43% of the total MPF assets under management. Since its launch, the eMPF platform's operation has been largely smooth, as at the end of September this year, the platform has processed over 1.6 million administrative instructions of various types, including making MPF contributions and withdrawals. During the initial launch phase of the platform, some employers and scheme members encountered difficulties in using the platform, including issues with account registration through facial recognition technology, unclear payment instructions, and delays in tagging payments and identifying voluntary contributions, resulting in contributions not being timely reflected in members' accounts. The government is highly concerned about these situations and has already instructed the MPFA and the eMPF Platform Company Limited to promptly address the relevant inquiries and complaints and proactively offer appropriate and timely support to employers and scheme members so as to ensure the full protection of scheme members' MPF assets and their positive user experience. Measures already implemented include assigning dedicated officers to help the employers concerned to familiarize with the platform-specific operation as soon as possible, setting up a contribution inquiry hotline in addition to the existing inquiry hotline to facilitate employers or employees in checking contribution information, strengthening the contractor's staff training and enhancing the reporting mechanism for exceptional cases, providing clearer guidelines on contributions on the platform, and refining the facial recognition software to simplify the eMPF platform registration process under the premise of ensuring the safety of users' personal data. The eMPF company has set service pledges in respect of services provided by the platform. In handling hotline inquiries and messages, the platform staff will in general answer hotline inquiries within 2 minutes and return hotline voicemail messages within the next working day. As regards the handling of complaints and written inquiries, under general circumstances, the platform staff will acknowledge receipt of complaints or written inquiries within 3 working days and issue replies within 12 working days. The relevant details have been uploaded onto eMPF company's official website for public reference. From its launch last June to the end of September this year, the eMPF platform received a total of about 2,400 complaint cases. The relevant case categories are set out at the annex. Over 90% of the cases were issued with replies within the time frame stipulated in the service pledges, taking an average processing time of about 10 to 12 working days. The remaining few cases could not be addressed within 12 working days, mainly due to their complexity, such as those involving administrative instructions submitted to trustees by the complainants prior to the onboarding of their schemes, hence requiring more time to process. The government has already requested the MPFA and the eMPF company to closely monitor the contractor's service standard in handling complaints to ensure proper handling of all complaints. To this end, the eMPF company has recently implemented a performance tracking system to continuously monitor the platform's operation statistics and to introduce alerts on critical processes, reminding the contractor staff to complete the processing of instructions made by employers and scheme members within the specified time frame. On manpower, the contractor has already increased its headcounts dedicated to handling eMPF-related inquiries and complaints by over 60% in the past 3 months, from about 500 staff as at the end of June to over 800 staff as at the end of September, and will further increase its headcounts to over 1,100 by the end of this year. This represents a substantial increase in headcounts by more than a double within half a year, which seeks to continuously enhance user experience and prepare for the imminent onboarding of larger-sized trustees to the eMPF platform. Meanwhile, the MPFA and the eMPF company have already urged the contractor to continuously refine the complaint handling mechanism. Measures already implemented include arranging dedicated customer service staff to follow up on cases and maintain close communication with complainants, enhancing the system interface used by frontline staff, and providing appropriate staff training, so as to speed up the process of complaint cases. The government, the MPFA, and the eMPF company will continue to closely monitor the complaint handling mechanism of the eMPF platform to provide employers and scheme members with customer services of higher quality. Thank you, President. Mr. Holden CHOW. President, in relation to the complaints we received at different districts on the eMPF platform, there was a huge number. Apart from complaints concerning the hotline service, some told us that the information they provided could not be verified and they encountered difficulties with updating the information. As an employer, I tried to register to use the eMPF platform and I found problems with their support services. My question is this: while the staff will be increased to 1,100 to operate the platform, are there more effective ways to regulate and supervise the eMPF platform to ensure that the contractor can provide efficient services for users to ensure that the administrative tasks could be carried out? Secretary, I thank the member for the questions. On one hand, we attach much importance to handling complaints from citizens and to improve their user experience. On the other hand, we would like to reduce the number of complaints at source. Allow me to tell you in detail about our work. 2 months before the launch of the platform, we launched an extensive publicity campaigns to ensure that scheme members and the information they provided in relation to their names are in line with the information they submit to the platform. We also reminded intermediaries after they have joined the platform, that is 3 months and 6 months after they've joined the complaint, to continue to provide support services for their clients, including teaching them how to input the information and help them process the relevant documents. In relation to improving user experience, over the past few months, we have done a lot of work. For example, we improved the capacity of the platform when we urged the contractor to speed up the relevant work. I provided the relevant statistics just now. We'll also step up training for frontline staff to improve their productivity as well as service quality. We've also reminded contractors to ask their management staff to improve the ratio between staff and managers so that they can offer better training to their staff. We've also urged contractors to deal with certain problems. Starting from August this year, we have conducted regular patrols and inspections to the hotline service center and other service centers to ensure that they provide efficient services. We've also deployed staff to use the customer service to ensure that the services could be improved. We've also installed devices that allow customer service staff to have a simulated experience about how they could improve their interface as well as services. Our contractor has also improved the automated services to remind customer service staff to upgrade the services. The objective of the eMPF platform is to provide a better user experience for scheme members, for citizens and employers that encounter difficulties. Well, we will continue to follow up on these cases in a serious manner. Mr. Lam Chun-sing. Thank you, President. The reply to this question is mainly about how the complaints are dealt with. For those who have a very smooth experience that with the eMPF platform, they will not lodge complaints. So the key is about the system. 2 years ago, because of certain reasons, the contractor imposed a delay of 8 months in terms of building the system. This time, is it again because of the operation on the contractor's side or interface issues that caused all these problems? According to your reply, you are going to monitor the contractor If this contractor fails to meet the relevant standards on a continuous basis, will there be a punishment mechanism in place to ensure that they can provide better services? Secretary. I thank the member for the questions. The eMPF platform involves information of all MPF schemes in Hong Kong. So in the early stage of the development of the system, we asked the contractor to do multiple rounds of testing. This is a piece of a major financial infrastructure. We want to ensure the stable development of the platform and its security, and this is a major work of the eMPF company. During the testing, we tested the security as well as the loading capacity as well as the handling of personal data. It covers a wide area. If the contractor fails to meet the standards as stipulated in the contract, what will happen? Say the contractor, when operating the platform, fails to meet the standards stipulated, the eMPF company has the right to, in accordance with the contract, deduct the operating fees payable in the following month or delay the payment. If the contractor fails to rectify the problem, it can be regarded as a serious violation of the contract, and the eMPF company will have the right to terminate the contract. The MPFA is currently monitoring the performance of the contractor, and it's reminding it to continue to improve its services. The government attaches great importance to this and will continue to monitor the situation. Thank you. Mr. Dennis LAM. Thank you. I see that for a period of time, there was onboarding of the trustees to the platform, and we're at the final stage of it. In relation to the complaints, I was told by some scheme members that there were problems with the verification and authentication. There are two ways to complete the authentication. One through iMSmart, and you can link up your iMSmart account with the eMPF platform. The system also allows users to access the eMPF platform through other means other than the iMSmart app. I was told by scheme members that they were asked to use the iMSmart app to access the eMPF platform. I'd like to ask about the stability of the eMPF system. Have you addressed the relevant issue, or do scheme members have to use the iMSmart app to connect their account with that of the eMPF platform? Secretary, I thank the member for the questions. As mentioned in my reply, on ensuring users' personal data, we have adjusted the facial recognition software to streamline the registration procedure. We do attach importance to personal data privacy, so we ask these users to meet certain requirements to complete the registration process. As to whether users can use other means apart from the iMSmart, they can use their ID cards to complete the registration. To give you another piece of information, the eMPF platform is a major piece of financial infrastructure. When building the system and when we work with the contractor, we've been keeping close communication with the Digital Policy Office. As for issues concerning the registration, we're happy to follow up the cases with members. Mr. Michael Luk. President, the eMPF platform was launched last month, and since then we have conducted many talks and educational activities. We've got 2,300 complaints. I don't know how many of them have to do with the contractor or the frontline staff, or how many of them was caused because the users were not familiar with the eMPF platform. I think the government should sort out the problems. Well, some complain that it is hard for them to log into the platform. I think it is easy to do it through the iMSmart app. It costs less than 10 seconds. I tried it before. If you have to input your personal particulars and set up your own password, and if you have vision problems, it would be very painful. So I want to know if the MPFA and the eMPF platform would work together to set up street booths and launch publicity campaigns. You can also take the opportunity to promote the IM Smart app. You can set up an IM Smart account for people, and you can link up the IM Smart account with that of the eMPF platform. So I want to know if the MPFA has any plan to launch the publicity campaign with the eMPF company. Secretary. Thank you, President. I thank the member for the questions. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Michael Luk, as well as your colleagues, for helping to promote the eMPF registration process and to help explain the system to the public. To answer the members' questions, indeed, we think that if users make use of IM Smart, it would give them a better experience when they complete the registration process. So through different channels, we encourage the public to make use of the eMPF platform. We have done a lot of promotional work. We have encouraged scheme members and employers to take part in training workshops and talks. We've also held large-scale activities before the launch of the platform so that people have a better understanding of the platform. And as mentioned, we have launched outreach activities, and recently we have stepped up rolling out these outreach activities. We have also adopted a hand-holding approach to help people register an account on the platform. Apart from the MPFA, the government departments can also offer support to roll out these kind of promotional activities.
Question 5, Mr. MA Fung-kwok. There have been public comments that the recent incidents of oversights in government procurement reflect that officials, including administrative officers, AOs, merely follow established procedures in performing their duties and lack knowledge and training in commercial practices. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of the number of local training programs organized for AO grade staff by the Civil Service College CSC annually since its establishment, as well as the content category and the numbers of hours and participants for each of the programs. 2, of the numbers of mainland and overseas training programs, thematic visits, and exchange activities arranged for AO grade staff by CSC in each of the past 3 years, as well as the numbers of hours and participants for each of the programs or activities. And 3, as it is learned that the government has previously organized a secondment scheme jointly with the business sector to enable AOs to understand actual commercial operations, whether the current mainland training programs for AO grade staff include exchanges or placements in departments related to economy, finance, and commerce under the central government, large state-owned or private enterprises, local authorities, etc., with a view to enhancing their understanding of the mainland's economic and commercial operations as well as local administrative practices. Secretary for Civil Service. President, the administrative service is a cadre of multi-skilled professional administrators who play a key role in the formulation, implementation, and review of public policies. The government attaches great importance to training and professional development of AOs to continuously enhance their knowledge and capabilities, thereby ensuring that the administrative service remains well equipped to effectively discharge its leadership responsibilities. My consolidated reply to various parts of the question is as follows. Training of civil servants is provided by the CSC and the respective departments and grades to which they belong. The CSC offers general competency training for civil servants at various levels, while individual departments and grades deliver specialized knowledge and professional skills training. This arrangement also applies to the administrative service, whose training is jointly managed by the CSC and the Administrative Service Division of the Bureau. To avoid redundancy, I will not specify the division responsible for individual training programs, and the Bureau shall be referred to collectively in the following reply. The Bureau has formulated a training and development framework tailored to the needs of AOs at different ranks, enabling them to receive structured training locally in mainland and overseas. In terms of local training, more than 5,800 attendances were recorded with a cumulative total of over 3,400 training days over the past 3 years, 2023 to 2025. Programs for probationary AOs and senior AOs cover a wide range of topics, including national studies, the country's foreign affairs, international relations, political systems, etc. There are also courses on practical topics such as public administration and financial management to consolidate officers' foundational knowledge in areas such as public finance, government financial position, and the approval procedures for capital works projects. The Civil Service Learning Management Portal also provides learning materials on day-to-day operations of civil servants, including procurement procedures for reference by all government officers. Regarding the educational opportunities offered by local higher education institutions, the Bureau also offers sponsorship to AOs who wish to pursue part-time postgraduate studies in fields relevant to their work. Over the past 3 years, a total of 36 sponsorships were granted for colleagues to pursue master's programs in the discipline of business administration, political economy, and public policy, etc. For mainland training, programs for AOs at different ranks include those conducted by the National Academy of Governance, as well as national studies programs conducted by mainland institutions, usually lasting from 6 to 12 days. In addition, individual policy bureaus or departments may organize their own training programs on national affairs or mainland-related topics for senior servants, including AOs. Over the past 3 years, more than 200 attendances by AOs were recorded for the programs. The Bureau has also arranged for senior civil servants with potential for advancement to pursue the 2-year master's degree in public policy program offered by Peking University, and has provided full sponsorship for senior officers to enroll in the part-time executive master of public administration program of the Tsinghua University. In the past 3 years, a total of 6 AOs were nominated to attend these 2 programs. These mainland training programs cover not only thematic lectures on national affairs, but include also field visits to mainland government authorities and public organizations, as well as local enterprises. These visits allow AOs to develop a well-rounded grasp of the latest developments and operational practices across various sectors in the mainland, and enhance their knowledge of the practices of government authorities and businesses in the mainland, so that they may draw on such experiences as insights for application. Moreover, the Bureau commenced a civil service staff exchange program with the mainland cities of the GBA in December 2023, and another exchange program with 5 mainland cities, namely Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing, Wuhan, and Hangzhou in December 2024. These programs enable civil servants from both sides to attach to each other's side, deepening mutual understanding of the respective structure, regulations, policies, and operations. Among the 20 participating civil servants of the SAR, 2 AOs were attached to government units in key development zones of the mainland, such as Fujian and Qianhai in Shenzhen. The attachment provided them with the opportunity to closely observe and take part in practical aspects of local governance, including policy implementation, project coordination, investment attraction, and enterprise support. The experience strengthened their policy acumen and practical capabilities with market sensitivity, serving as a value reference for them in future. Under these programs, 30 mainland civil servants have also been attached to policy bureaus and departments of the Hong Kong SAR government. Some of the exchange officers have worked alongside AOs, and the professional and informal exchanges during the attachment period have enhanced AOs' understanding of the social development and civil service operations in the mainland. As for overseas training, the Bureau has resumed overseas development programs for AOs in an orderly manner after the pandemic. Since 2024, a total of 50 AOs on completion of probation have been arranged to attend 8-week training programs at Sciences Po in Paris and the London School of Economics and Political Science. The Bureau has also sponsored Directorate AOs to pursue short-term executive development courses, typically ranging from 1 to several weeks, or 1-year master's degree programs at overseas institutions. These programs cover areas such as international political economy, public policy, and financial and business management, effectively broadening AO's perspectives to international public policy and practical governance. Beyond the training framework, we have a long-standing practice of seconding AOs to various international organizations. Current arrangements include the APAC, the Financial Action Task Force, and the Asian Development Bank. Moreover, with the support of the central government, Hong Kong took part in the UN Junior Professional Office Program for the first time in 2019, under which young civil servants, including AOs, have been sent to take up various positions at UN offices as Chinese personnel. In the day-to-day work of diverse roles within the administrative service, AOs are frequently exposed to opportunities to handle public administration matters and engage with markets and the trade, enabling them to continually consolidate their skills and knowledge. AOs may enhance and consolidate their knowledge and experience in public administration and various professional domains, including through trainings and other professional development arrangements in the areas specifically of economics, finance, and commercial practices. The Bureau will from time to time review the training and development needs of AOs and timely provide suitable opportunities to prepare them for the challenges in policy development and daily operations at the local, national, and international levels. President, that's the end of my reply. Mr. Ma Fung-kwok. President, generally, AOs are required to possess some general skills. They need to know a bit of everything. We have a musical chair arrangement for the posting of AOs. Apart from some technical positions, AOs are in general required to rotate between different postings. But with this arrangement, we will see two posts where AOs are deployed to being of completely different nature. So will you provide training to them, or will AOs have to learn as they go? Thank you. President, with the rotation of AOs, they are required to exercise public administration skills rather than some professional skills, because we already have professional grade staff for the specific professions. So AOs can always exercise their public administration skills. For certain posts, they may require specific experience or skills. Before officers are deployed to such positions, bureaus and departments will provide knowledge, network connections, or specific information needed for the positions so that officers will be trained for work of the positions. Thank you. Dr. Starry Lee. Society is very much paying close attention to the issue of training of AOs. AOs are leaders of our society. We also have an executive-led structure, so it is very important for the work of the AOs to be implemented well. So we have talked about promoting patriotic education earlier, but what I think is important is also to construct or instill values in the civil service that they should be serving the people of Hong Kong. So I want to ask for the civil service in general, including AOs, for different levels, how much awareness do they have in this regard? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for your questions. When training civil servants, the Civil Service College trains them on various things, including awareness. There will also be training in consolidation of skills, but within such training, there's also incorporation of elements on awareness and mindset. We have some very clear content in the curriculum on the core values of a civil service, so that at different stages of work of civil servants, we will have training for civil servants on the mindset that they should adopt and the values they should hold. Civil servants, of course, have to be patriots, and the Civil Service College has been actively promoting patriotic education. The college has 2 major training programs this year, one on providing in-depth content on the country in various areas. We have another training seminar on the war against Japanese aggression to tell civil servants more about the history and the significance of such events. Thank you. Ms. Nixie Lam. Thank you, President, Secretary. I am the chairman of the panel on public service. I know much about civil service training. The Secretary mentioned there are 2 courses, one on the war against Japanese aggression. We have another training, I believe, on Friday. So for AOs, they will be leading teams, perhaps even large teams. For AOs, they may be working well individually, but with leading teams, there may have to be more systematic knowledge that they need to acquire. What is the government's work in this regard at the moment in training them in this area? Secretary, we have such courses for senior civil servants in general. AOs can also take such courses. We also provide targeted training to AOs. For senior AOs, at the National Academy of Governance, there is a specific program for AOs on national affairs. For officers of a certain pay level, if they undertake leadership courses, their training will touch on national affairs. Let me say again, the National Academy of Governance has a particular program for AOs, specifically for senior AOs. We have invested a lot in the curriculum. AOs, when they are relatively young, having taken the course will really help them in training them to adopt a certain mindset. Before the pandemic, we had arranged for AOs to visit different mainland cities. During the pandemic, unfortunately, the arrangements had suspended. We had been striving for resumption of such programs after the pandemic, but due to manpower constraints, we have not been able to make it happen. We hope to resume such courses as soon as possible. We believe with such arrangements, it will really nurture AOs in their mindset and values. AOs in different parts of their work will touch on affairs related to the mainland or the country in general more than other grades. We believe with such work in practice, it will nurture them in their awareness and mindset as well. Thank you. Mr. Martin Liao. With the recruitment of AOs, one of the requirements is for the young officers to be recruited. The young recruits are often elites in academia, but in turn, they have often been criticized that they are not very pragmatic. So how can we increase the pragmatism among the administrative service? Thank you. Secretary, it is indeed the case that for recruitment of AOs, many of those applying are recent graduates or those in their third year. But there are also many who have already work experience under the belts, perhaps work experience of a year or several years. So we have a group of AOs recruited that are experienced. They are not new graduates. But regardless of whether AOs have work experience before they join the government, we have training for the AOs. They can also learn as they work. We talked about earlier how some visits might be arranged. There are also training courses that would have seminars, that would have visits incorporated, visits to be made to enterprises, local or mainland, as well as some government authorities, to see the different operations. We hope to, as I said earlier, resume the mainland visit arrangements for junior AOs so that they know more about the practical work of government officials on the mainland. Mr. Tony Tse, I understand that for civil service training, there is a secondment program, or in a way there is a 6-month arrangement where one is posted to a bureau or department. Under the arrangement, will a particular officer be selected to work in a bureau or department that has suitable work for the individual? Will the government collect relevant data under the arrangement so that we have more data on the effectiveness of the arrangement? Secretary, well, the particular program that the member mentioned is not AOs, because we have a lot of AOs in different policy bureaus. It is for professional grade staff, because professional grade staff may be very familiar with their own professional work, but they may lack political sensitivity or an understanding of public sentiment in general. So we want to have some officers of potential in advancement to work in some bureaus, to work essentially as an AO for 6 months. Eventually, the officers will go back to their bureaus or departments. But we heard that the officers often had good experiences during the 6 months, and they had learned a lot for advancement into senior positions in future.
Last question seeking oral reply, Honorable LUK Chung-hung. According to the data from the Education Bureau, over 130 school children committed suicide between 2020 and 2024. Furthermore, it has been reported that the number of primary and secondary students suffering from mental illness such as depression and anxiety disorders during the 24-25 school year has significantly increased compared to 5 years earlier. On supporting students with suicidal risk, will the government inform this council? 1. Of the respective numbers of student suicide cases and attempted suicide cases in the past 3 years, and among them the numbers of students with special educational needs or suffering from depression or anxiety disorders, together with a breakdown by age group of students, including those aged 0 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 18, and above 18 years old. 2. Whether it has conducted detailed studies on student suicide cases in recent years and analyzed their causes. If so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. And 3, as the government has implemented the 3-tier school-based emergency mechanism in secondary schools since 2023 for early identification of and support for students with suicidal risk, of the number of cases currently in each tier of the mechanism, given that the 2025 policy address proposed that the mechanism will be extended on a trial basis to primary 4 to 6 students, of the specific implementation timetable, and whether it will consider further extending it to lower primary students, increasing the ratio of school social workers as well as guidance and discipline teachers while strengthening homeschool collaboration. Secretary for Education. President. The Education Bureau, EDB, attaches great importance to the physical and psychological health of students and proactively provides support for schools in adopting the whole school approach at 3 levels, namely universal, selective, and indicated to take care of students' mental health. We also collaborate with other policy bureaus or departments and stakeholders to promote students' whole person development and enhance support for students with mental health needs, including those with high suicidal risk, through cross-departmental discipline and sector collaboration, optimizing curriculum information, activities, training, and professional supports, etc. In consultation with the Health Bureau, HHB, the Labor and Welfare Bureau, LWB, and the Social Welfare Department, SWD, our reply to the question raised by Honorable Michael Luk is as follows. 1 and 2. The EDB requires primary and secondary schools to report suspected student suicide cases in order to provide appropriate professional support to the schools concerned. However, it is not mandatory for schools to report attempted or planned suicide cases of students, and the EDB does not collect information on suspected suicide cases involving university students. In the past 3 years, that is 2022 to 24, the number of fatal suspected student suicide cases reported by all primary and secondary schools in the territory to the Bureau were 25, 32, and 28 respectively. Of the cases reported in the past 3 years, secondary school students accounted for about 93%, while primary students account for about 7%. The government set up the Committee on Prevention of Student Suicides in 2016 to understand the issues of student suicide comprehensively. The study of the committee reviewed that students' suicidal behavior was attributable to interplay of multiple factors, including mental health issues, psychological factors, relationship problems, adjustment problems, and academic stress. Suicide is a complicated issue. The reasons for each case is not the same. So we should not attribute any case to a single factor such as special educational needs or mental illness or simplify the reasons of suicide. The government set up a cross-policy bureau department task force on prevention of youth suicides in 2017 to follow up on youth suicide issues and review the progress of the implementation of recommendations of the committee and explore ways to enhance existing measures and services. In addition, since 2013, the Child Fatality Review Panel has published 6 reports setting out its observations and recommendations pertaining to child fatality cases, including suicide. The government will conduct relevant research in due course when necessary to enhance the effectiveness of the support. 3. Through collaboration of the EDB, the HHB, and the SWD, the government has implemented the 3-tier school emergency mechanism in all secondary schools since December 2023. Under the first tier of the mechanism, the EDB provides gatekeeper training for teachers, parents, and students so as to equip them to early identify and handle students of higher suicidal risk. As at the 31st of August this year, the off-campus support teams engaged by SWD have received a total of 418 case referrals under the second tier of the mechanism, while the hospital authority's psychiatric specialist services received a total of 444 referrals from principals and 173 telephone inquiries under the third tier. The Chief Executive's 2025 policy address announced that the government would regularize the mechanism in secondary schools and extend it on a trial basis to primary 4 to 6 students. We'll closely monitor the operation of the mechanism and review the relevant arrangements of the mechanism in due course. Besides, starting from last year, the EDB has been collaborating with the police and the SWD upon obtaining the consent of parents or guardians. The police will refer students who attempted suicide outside schools to receive follow-up services by the students attending schools or social services units arranged by the SWD. To make every effort to support the students and parents or guardians concerned, the police will provide them with information on support for or assistance even if the parents or guardians decline the referral. For the support of students with mental health needs, schools are staffed with professionals of different disciplines, including school social workers, student guidance personnel, and school-based educational psychologists to provide students in need with appropriate support and parents with consultation services. The EDB has also implemented the one school social worker for each school policy in public primary schools since 2018-19 school year and provided additional grants for schools to procure consultation, supervision, or other related services to support school social workers. For secondary schools, to boost a youth's mental health and resilience, the SWD has implemented a measure of 2 school social workers for each school since 2019-20 school year and enhanced supervisory support in handling complicated cases. The SWD has also strengthened the manpower support for school social work service in secondary schools across the territory since 21-22 school year, with a view to assisting school social workers in handling administrative work and implementing activities to enable them to provide students in need with more intensive counseling and services. Comprehensive students' guidance and support services are provided through the whole school approach and cross-disciplinary collaboration. Each school has already set up a cross-disciplinary team with the provision of social workers for schools' external support and funding arrangement. Schools can deliver services with professional quality. In addition, they are provided with sufficient resources to hire and procure additional guidance services. Therefore, the government has no plan to increase the number of school social workers. We'll continue to review and strengthen guidance services as appropriate to promote students' whole person development. Parents play a crucial role in supporting students' development and learning and fostering their whole person development. The EDB has rolled out the territory-wide Positive Parent campaign and developed the curriculum framework on parent education to enable parents to acquire the necessary knowledge and skills for nurturing their students. Besides, to help parents early identify and support their children, the EDB provides parent gatekeeper training and more thematic parent education programs to share with them ways to raise happy and positive children. The EDB will continue to strengthen synergy through cross-departmental and sector collaboration, work closely with schools and parents to step up the promotion of student mental health. Mr. Michael Lok. Student suicide is a very sensitive issue. We don't want to see it, but it must be dealt with. Look, the EDB has no mandatory policy in place to require schools to report attempted suicide cases. Sometimes, in these cases, the students inflicted harm on themselves. It's only the case that there are no lives lost that they don't have to report it. The SWD will review a report every 2 or 3 years in relation to child fatality. It's mentioned in the reply, but the data is quite outdated. In the report published in May 2014, the data came from 2019 and 20. There is no update. The report is not published every year. It may be published once every 2 or 3 years. Should the publication of reports be more regular and with updated data? In the report, you only find information of one pie chart with scanty information. It is of very low reference value. We need in-depth analysis on the issues they face at schools, about themselves, at home, because this is about students and youngsters. There should be an indicator for a student's mental condition or state. We need something that will be indicative and informative instead of just giving us the report as a matter of going through the motion. Secretary. The panel composes of experts and professionals in different areas. They looked into different types of child fatality cases. The purpose of the review report is not to look into the causes of child fatality cases or to pursue liability or responsibility. The aim is to facilitate policy facilitation on social welfare, as well as help different departments to identify best practices. And in relation to workflow, cross-discipline, collaboration, the panel will provide recommendations. In terms of data collection, investigation of cases, and analysis of data, there are restrictions in relation to the methodology. But the direction and the aim of the panel is very clear. As to the proposals mentioned by the member as to whether the publication will be more regular, the data will be more updated, we will forward his views to the panel. Dr. David Lam. In relation to looking into the causes of fatal cases, it will be inflicting secondary harm on parents. Perhaps it would be better to collect information and data from psychologists and psychiatrists. The cause, as well as the problem itself in relation to mental health, is rather hidden. It is better to identify the cases as early as possible. Will there be promotional efforts to promote first aid on mental health, or any timetable to implement mental health assessment? Just now, it's mentioned that we have to have human touch in handling these cases, and we cannot simplify the reasons for these cases. The parties involved might not have a very high awareness, or they may not accept that there are issues and problems. I think it's an issue related to our culture. We have to step up our promotion. We have to enhance the awareness on the part of parents. We need to equip them with more knowledge. And we will also enhance education on parents in relation to mental health first aid. We have plans to train teachers. It is our plan that for public primary and secondary school students to provide a training to them. We have about a dozen of sessions every school term. We will make adjustments in view of demand. Regarding mental health first aid, we have resource kits, we have training courses for parents, schools, and teachers. We'll continue to step up our work in this area in the future. Dr. Teck Chi Yuen. The EDB and relevant departments have been doing a lot of work to address the issues relating to student suicide cases as well as mental health. They have done a lot of work in relation to the 3-tier mechanism as well as the 4R mental health charter. Regrettably, we keep hearing about these tragic cases. My concern is whether the policies and initiatives are effective enough. We need early identification and effective intervention. I've talked to some experts. Sometimes guidelines, observations, and a few questions are all we need to identify high-risk students. In addition to the 4R Charter and the 3-tier mechanism, has the government considered certain workflow, say for example at the beginning of the term, ask students some questions in order to identify high-risk students to follow up? Do you have plans to put in this mechanism so that we can effectively identify and intervene early and effectively? The member asked about the whole school approach. In addition to the 3-tier mechanism involving different disciplines and sectors, actually, we promote the 4R Charter in the whole school. We also promote the whole school approach, namely universal, selective, and indicated. They all serve different purposes. On the first level, that is universal. It is for the whole school, as the member said. We want to draw attention to mental health so that early identification and support can be done. In relation to high-risk students, if parents are willing, perhaps before the start of the school or when a student goes from primary school to secondary school, the student's situation may be told to the school. Social workers, educational psychologists, and class masters can work together to assist. Sometimes parents themselves don't want the school that the student is going to start to know about the situation. As to whether we can do more at different stages, say for example during examination times, which is high risk, we have programs to provide assistance to students during examination times. We have adjustment programs and special activities before the start of a school year to help students to adapt. We also strongly promote values education. In a systematic level, we have introduced flexible teaching hours in primary and secondary schools. We also have a diversified assessment policy as well as homework policy. We have a diversified multiple pathways for secondary school students. If necessary, parents and students are given the information that are relevant in relation to homework, quizzes, and tests, papers. We have provided clear guidance to schools. We encourage schools to, after school has started or before or after long holidays, provide assistance to students to help them manage their homework. Ms. Lilian Kwok, the first ever meeting of the education panel talked about mental health. We're told that mental health involves many different issues that are complicated. These issues are interwoven. I learned from data that 50% of the suicide cases are actually followed up by at least one social worker. How come that even with a social worker support, the students still choose to commit suicide? Well, social workers are involved in the first and second tier. Psychologists are involved in the second and the third tiers. We need more cross-discipline professionals in the interface. It's mentioned that personnel with counseling background will be incorporated in the whole structure. My question is, will you consider in the future ways to incorporate personnel with counseling background in schools so that they can identify cases, provide assistance, and prevent tragedies from happening? Secretary. To help children and students with mental health, we need to mobilize parents, schools, parents, as well as different stakeholders, including experts and professionals. That's why we need cross-discipline and sector collaboration. Different professionals have their own limitations and blind spots. That's why we need the whole team. We need a whole school approach. We need to pay attention to each child. The team will work better as time goes on when they make adjustments and adapt. We have a combination of different professionals and different parties in the team. The most important thing is to mobilize the personnel required as needed. If we put in place a rigid structure, it may not be the best for students.
That's the end of the questions.